last but not least, you have to say "Talk Pickle to Me" in the sexiest way possible.
Oh, shit. I was hoping you forgot that. Talk Pickle to Me.
Woo! All right. Thank you so much.
I want to thank Julie Johnson for having to go first. Poor Julie.
Yes, she was petrified, and she did not know it was coming. She didn't know it was coming because it was the first one. So I was
know.
like,
When I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, I hope by the time she gets to me, she'll not be doing that anymore.
Hello, and welcome back to the Talk Pickle to Me podcast. I'm your host, Pickleball Chick, aka Caitlin Kerr. We are currently in the series of the 10 most influential women in pickleball. In our 8th episode today, we have Ann Worcester. Ann was a Duke University grad majoring in economics. After graduation, Ann went on to work for WME and IMG in sales and marketing. She had a few other roles before becoming the first and youngest female CEO of any major sports organization. She became the CEO of the Women's Tennis Association. Following her role with the WTA, she was the tournament director for the Connecticut Open for 20 years, president of Universal Tennis, and now the strategic advisor for UPA, consisting of Major League Pickleball and the PPA Tour. She has held many roles on boards, including a nonprofit board we both sit on together for Pickleball Cares. Ann Worcester, talk pickle to me.
Thank you for having me. This is very exciting.
I am so excited for you to be here. Thank you so much for coming on. Before we get started, I just want to take the time to thank again everybody that has been listening to these podcasts and for being here today, listening and watching in. It truly has been so much fun to release episodes every week with the most influential women in pickleball. We just had Anna Bright on. If you could please take a second and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to this podcast, leave us 5 stars and make sure you're following us on Instagram at Talk Pickle to Me. Also, if there's anything that you would like to see or have us change to make the viewing or listening experience better, please let me know and drop it in the comments. All right, Ann, let's get into it. Tell us about Ann growing up. Where were you raised and what was family life like?
I was born and raised in Syosset, Long Island, New York. My parents were from Minnesota, so they kind of brought all kinds of down-to-earth Midwestern values to our home. My mother actually grew up on a farm, a working farm. My father was a brilliant actuary in insurance. My mother was an elementary educator with all kinds of master's degrees. And we grew up, I'm the oldest of 3, grew up thinking that we absolutely won the lottery with both of our extraordinary parents. Super, super fortunate. Family dinner, 6 p.m., never, ever to be missed. We all had to hold hands and talk about what we were thankful for that day. So I think gratitude was a huge lesson very early on. We never went on fancy vacations or on airplanes. We would get in the station wagon and go on educational vacations. My mother, especially being a teacher, we'd drive to Philadelphia or Washington, D.C. or Williamsburg, and it was all about the learning. And we just thought that was the best trip in the whole wide world. Huge tennis family, no surprise. My parents taught tennis as a second profession and taught the 3 of us very young. They always said, this is the sport of a lifetime. You can play tennis forever. And, not only did I play growing up and through high school competitively, but, it obviously launched a career in tennis. So very grateful for planting the seed of tennis in our lives. So, they came from the Midwest. They were super interested in culture. So living near New York, my mother got theater development fund tickets as a teacher. So we were at the opera and the ballet and off Broadway very, very young. So I sort of feel like we had the best of both worlds of having these Midwestern parents and values, but growing up outside New York City.
Beautiful. Makes a lot of sense. And I feel like when you have really good parents, you, like you said, you hit the lottery with great parents. They give everything. So
it is a gift never to be taken advantage of. It's a huge gift.
Yes, it is. So you made the decision to attend the best university in the world. Absolutely zero bias. You can't see my shirt, but I'm wearing a Duke shirt for you today. You attended Duke University. Now, I know you're only 20 years old, but that was back in the day. Did you know what you wanted to be when you grow up? How did you make the decision to attend Duke?
I agree on the best university. Thank you. And one thing I did know very early on is I only wanted to go to Duke University. I wanted to, get out of the Northeast. It was a medium-sized school, very strong academically, strong in athletics, strong in social. Mm-hmm. So for me, it hit on all cylinders. And I went to visit when I was like in 9th grade, and I had some fraternity like singing to me and playing, beer pong, and the rest was history. But my father, who was like super involved in all of our lives, took me to 12 different college visits. And I drove him crazy because I only ever wanted to go to Duke University. Wow. So thank God they let me in, Caitlin.
Wow. That's crazy. I mean, your parents honestly sound a lot like my parents, just super giving, always wanted to provide the best possible education for us. My dad, same thing. When I was getting recruited for soccer everywhere, the amount of trips he took me on was absurd. Everyone thought we were crazy, but I do think it's parents doing their due diligence too, making sure that you're going to be comfortable and not just, wanting to pick this one for a stupid reason or another.
But it's not typical. Like my husband went to Gettysburg and he saw Gettysburg the day his parents dropped him off for freshman year. Like not everybody had that gift, of going to see lots of schools and making an informed decision.
Yes. Very well said, Anne.
And Duke is actually, I thought I was going to play tennis at Duke. I wasn't good enough to be recruited for a D1 school. But so instead I joined the student union, and I organized plays and concerts and movies and speakers and art exhibits. I was the vice president for programming, I think was my title. And my parents would call every few months and say, "Are you studying? Like, we're spending our life savings to send you to this university, and it feels like you're like out at cultural events all the time." And I did not know what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I was an economics major, but I was always very interested in international relations, international affairs. I studied in London while I was at Duke. I lived on an Israeli kibbutz while I was at Duke, and then right after graduation I went and worked as a nanny in Spain to improve my Spanish. So international was really all I knew, but because of what I did on campus with the student union, this guy walked up to me on the quad senior year, and he said, "I'm Todd McCormick. I know what you do with the student union. I think you'd be perfect for my father's company, IMG." I said, "What's IMG?" He said, "International Marketing Group, sports marketing." I said, "What's sports marketing?" And so he started to tell me a little bit about it. And they were organizing the Pope's trip to London right after graduation. And he said, you'd fly yourself over, work for free, and maybe they'd put you up. And I'm looking at him, and I'm up to here. And, I'm a scholarship student. I'm like up to my eyeballs in college, in student loans. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. and I just never followed up. And then I literally bumped into him when I got back from Spain and, working as a nanny in Spain. And he said, "Why didn't you ever follow up with me?" So he started to tell me about IMG and sports marketing and event marketing. And I'm like, I can get paid to organize events? Like, I've been doing that my whole life. And so sent my resume to his father the next day. And then the only entry-level opening in the company was in racket sports. And of course, I'd played all my life. And it was answering the phones at a men's tennis tournament at Longwood Cricket Club, an ATP event, answering the phones and taking ticket orders. I made $250 a week, no job security. I think I had 3 months, no benefits. And within a week, I knew I had found my niche in life. And it all came out of that conversation standing on West Campus Quad right in front of the Pits. I don't know if it was still called the Pits when you were there, the dining room. Okay. And that all came out of that conversation with Todd McCormick at Duke.
Wow. Small world, but I mean, what a career that has transposed from that conversation. It's pretty amazing how that happens. Let's fast forward a bit. You were the tournament director for the Connecticut Open for, I believe, over 21 years. You were the first female chief executive of the WTA and the youngest of any major organization. And you were also the president of Universal Tennis. There is a lot in that. Can you sort of try to describe and give us an overall picture of your vast experience in the tennis world?
It's been an incredible 35 years of opportunities on all sides of pro tennis. The tournament side, the player side, the sponsorship side, all culminating in the governance side. But IMG, after that first experience, they kept hiring me to work events. And so I had a very steady stream of event, independent contractor work. And I went from answering the phones to being the ticket manager to corporate sales, which was very early on really what I love to do, matching a brand with a sports property and sort of making a sports property meet the goals and objectives of a brand or a company. So IMG sent me to the Lipton International, which is now the Miami Open at Hard Rock Stadium. And so that was an amazing couple of years as ticket manager and director of corporate sales. And then they gave me an opportunity to go back to Spain and have a real job. I worked with tennis legend Manolo Santana, Grand Slam champion. Manolo's company and IMG had a joint venture to run 8 different tennis events and exhibitions all over Spain. So I lived in Madrid and I got to work on events in Madrid, Barcelona, Mallorca, Marbella. And obviously that really helped, improve my Spanish and met people from all over the world. And Manolo was a very progressive Spaniard back in 1987. He just said, you can do anything you want. And, having a female in any kind of an executive office was highly unusual in Spain and at that point in time, and certainly in sports marketing. So that was a really, really great experience. Came back and worked for Virginia Slims. I got an amazing opportunity with Virginia Slims as director of global operations when Virginia Slims was the sponsor of the whole WTA tour, the whole series. So worked closely with players, events, loved that international scope. And then that really morphed into governance. So kind of putting together players, tournaments, sponsorship. And, Philip Morris was the best in the business at event marketing because of tobacco. They could not advertise on radio or television. So they had to be the best in the business at event marketing. So I learned so much and I still use that every day. But that morphed into the governance. And then I went on to be the managing director of the Women's Tennis Council, which was the then governing body of women's tennis, players, tournaments, Grand Slams, ITF. And we went through a major merger. So this was not my first merger in pickleball. Major merger, the Players Association and the Women's Tennis Council merged and formed the first ever WTA Tour. And I was probably the most surprised when I was appointed the first CEO of that integrated, unified WTA Tour, and had an incredible 4 years of really having to take the business from almost a sort of a startup to a much more professional organization that was profitable. So learned a lot there. And then I wanted to get somewhere in there. I got married. I met my husband actually at Philip Morris. And just couldn't be traveling around the world 50% of the time and working 24/7. I mean, if we had players in Tokyo, and even if I wasn't there and there was nerve gas in the Japanese subway, we had to drop everything on a Saturday afternoon, get on the phone with our security or global security company and decide whether we were pulling players and pulling staff out of Tokyo. So I, finished my contract and decided not to renew because we wanted to start a family. I had already had my son. I was pregnant with my daughter. And I knew I would do something else that was more consistent with my personal priorities, Caitlin. And then there was a men's tennis tournament at Yale. And I worked with the WTA to add a women's tournament. And so I had the privilege of being the tournament director for more than 20 years, which was amazing because it was all about not just world-class tennis, but it was about leveraging world-class tennis to benefit community, to create inner-city tennis programs and education programs to change kids' lives, the economic impact to the city, the marketing of the city and state. I learned so much about how to really, and the USTA would hold up the Connecticut Open as the leading example of leveraging a large-scale international sporting event to benefit community. So that was an amazing 20 years. And then we had to sell the tournament in 2019. I thought I'd take some time off for the first time in my career. And, when you sell your tournament to China, everybody knows you're available. So I had a few opportunities, but Mark Leshley from UTR reached out. And, I felt like I had done so many important things in sports, but I really wanted to be even more proficient with technology. So I joined Universal Tennis Rating, UTR, as the president and worked alongside Mark and the staff to grow UTR, grow grassroots tennis through level-based play. And that was very eye-opening and exciting and very intense. And then we moved to Nashville because my husband works in music, and we had a death in the family, and I just needed some time off. And so I went to Mark and said, I'm just going to take a break, and I'm just going to take a break for a while. So I took a few months off, and one day James Blake called me, this guy on the poster here. And he said, I bought a pickleball team with Mark Lazary. It's called Major League Pickleball. We just had our first event, and Steve Kuhn, the founder, is looking for a CEO, and I recommended you. Is it okay if I give him your number? So that's how I met Steve Kuhn, and that was in December of 2021. And as you know, the rest is history. But I didn't want to be the CEO at that point in my career. I didn't want, I had been a CEO and a president and a CMO and an executive director, and I didn't want to run something. I really just wanted something more consultancy or advisory. Mm-hmm. And so after I declined the CEO, a few weeks later, Steve called and said, okay, how about a contract to be a strategic advisor for 10 hours a week? And I was silly enough to believe him. So that's how it started.
Wow. I didn't know that James Blake actually was the connection. I knew that you had known James Blake for a while, but I didn't know he got into it before you did.
Yeah, that's why he sits on our Pickleball Cares board, because he always says, I owe Anne forever and ever because I got her into pickleball.
This is true. He is a great guy. Okay, so now you are working for the UPA as a strategic advisor. What are your primary responsibilities?
So my role has evolved. No surprise in a startup. I just celebrated 3 years of MLP. Wow. So I think I'm the OG there. And so, I've always been very focused on team relations. As you know, I'm coming from a team. But because of my background in event operations and marketing and sponsorship and comms and leadership and governance, I could always lean in wherever MLP needed me. And so, with Steve, I was kind of his acting CEO alongside Brian Levine, co-interim CEO, with Bruce Popko, kind of his number two. So I'm a strategic advisor, but I've answered to all things. People call me the glue. I answer to all these different titles. And because since the merger and because of the positives of the merger, I've worked a lot with the integration of MLP and PPA, bringing together the two companies. We have a UPA leadership exec group that I administer, and because we are hosting our 10 regular season events in host team markets, I have the privilege of being the liaison between the host team for each event, and the sponsorship department, and the marketing department, and the comms department, and the CVB department. So I feel like it really is utilizing my 3 years of relationship building with the teams, as well as 40 years of event marketing and event managing experience. So I'm really enjoying that.
Yeah, I think, first of all, the fact that we're actually hosting events in every single event is in a team's city is incredible. I think we saw...
You finally got it right.
Yeah. It takes time, but I think we saw the DC event was done fantastically, and that ownership group is definitely leaned in one of the most, and they've done a tremendous job. But to have a team sort of take over and bring in the local communities and get a lot of people on board, I think will change the game going forward. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, look what happened in New York when we had 3 teams. We had New Jersey, New York, and Brooklyn leaning in and sharing pickleball micro communities and clubs and pre-event activations. That was incredible teamwork, and we beat our ticket record by 140%. No surprise. Mm-hmm. So, that's why it was kind of a no-brainer to pivot to host team markets for our signature events.
Yeah. You have seen many ebbs and flows in the league throughout the years. As you mentioned, you are the OG there officially now. What is the UPA doing right, and where is there room for improvement?
What is UPA doing right? I would say the strength of the cap table. Caitlin, you play pickleball, many of these people. But when we went out and expanded the league, every time we were very intentional and strategic about adding executives with expertise in not just sports investment, but sports marketing, entertainment, branding, all aspects of the sports industry. I mean, if you look at our lead preferred investors, Tom Dundon, Al Tylis, Jason Stein, remarkable experience with investing in sports leagues and growing. And look at our teams, Rich Chaffetz, Rich Kleiman, Gary V. I mean, there's, on any given day, I can call any of those people with a quandary or a question or for help. And it's an incredible resource. So I'd say that's number one. Number two, we're very well funded, especially since the merger. So that means that when we have new opportunities that present themselves, whether it's expanding the PPA juniors or creating a brand new challenger tour or growing internationally. We just had our first international event in Melbourne, Australia. We have this group of not just our lead preferred investors, but our preferred investors who are typically very much in agreement with how we want to grow the business. And sometimes that happens fast and furious, but there's, in this world, especially, I call pickleball like the combination of an arms race, gold rush, and a rocket ship. So you can have a budget, but there are new opportunities around the corner that we don't see today. So we're very fortunate to have both lead preferred investors and preferred investors who, when an idea makes good business sense, are ready to help us with a cash infusion. Mm-hmm. I would have to say third, the best collection of players in the world. I mean, you know, especially coming from tennis, I know this all too well. The players are our product, and we have 150 of the best players contracted to play UPA exclusively, so MLP and PPA, and that is definitely what separates UPA from the rest. And, you know, putting those players on, you know, the best players on the biggest stages with the broadest broadcast is how we're going to take this to the next level. So I would say all three of those things are probably our strengths. And you also asked on where to improve, where we could improve. You know, again, the usual challenges that startups face, you know, trying to build and operate and grow all at the same time. You know, we often say we feel like we're building the airplane as we're flying down the tarmac. It's a group of very talented, very ambitious people who have the funding and the wherewithal to make things happen in a very, very fast way. So I would say those are the strengths and the areas of improvement.
Yeah. I think you nailed it with the strengths. There is no other entity in the sport currently that has the people associated and the people that are willing to put in the time and effort and money to make this grow. Also, I think you hit it with UPA currently has the best players in the world. And if you are one of the best players in the world, you want to play against the best players in the world. That's how you continue to get better. That's how you continue to improve. And so I think, you know, that's an area where people are saying, oh, well, in 2 years when the contracts come up, what will happen? And I think that's where it goes back to the cap table and the people that are the investors. They're extremely smart. They are willing to do what it takes to win. And so I would, you know, if I'm a betting man, which I'm not, if I'm a betting man, I'd put my money on UPA. Because a lot of people ask me that same question. There are entities popping up everywhere overseas. We have 3 India tours. There's tours in Australia. China's gonna start to dominate in some form or another. And so, you know, how do you keep the number one position? And that's where I think, you know, I also see that UPA is hiring top talent. They just hired Samina Dwani from the Brooklyn Aces to be the chief strategy officer. And so I think, you know,
great addition to our team. Really good.
bringing smart minds together, and bringing, you know, different minds, different types of people together is really important. Which brings me to the next topic. There are 0 females on the board of UPA. I had written zero females in the C-suite, but Anne is in the C-suite, and 1 female GM out of 22 MLP teams. And this is not just with the UPA. There is a similar story across other entities in the sport. So my question for you is, how do we change that?
Very good question. I'm grateful that I've had the opportunities I've had in my 3 years, you know, working alongside the CEOs and the COOs. And I think there are org charts where I'm called a chief of staff as opposed to a strategic advisor. Mm-hmm. But I think all entities in pickleball can and need to do better. At UPA, we have quite a few women I knew the women at MLP very well, but over the past year, I've gotten to know the women at PPA. And there's quite a few serving in the director and VP level, and quite a few, sort of coordinator, manager, younger. And we need to mentor them and elevate them as much as possible. And I see that as one of my many roles in the company. And I think it's a real priority for the company. It's it's an issue in all of sports, Caitlin. It's not just pickleball. Like I used to look out at my tournament director meetings with 55 tournaments in 35 countries, all year long, and there were very few females in the room for women's tennis. When I ran the combined ATP and WTA event, Connecticut Open at Yale, I was the only female tournament director of a combined event in the whole wide world of ATP and WTA. That's crazy. I didn't want that, moniker. So it's a sports-wide issue. When I was pregnant, when I was the CEO, there was quite a bit of discrimination, especially from Europeans. How can the CEO be pregnant? One head of a federation said to me, and I was stunned. I was 35 years old and wanting to start a family and wanting to have a career. And that's not an easy thing to do. Being a working mom is not easy.
Right. But I think what makes the United States what it is that we have endless opportunities and we can choose to do both. If we want to do both, we can have it all. Yes, things will have to adjust, but it's important to have, in my opinion, to have a diversity of thought in rooms. Obviously, like I worked on Wall Street. There was not one other female on my trading desk. Throughout soccer in my career, most of my coaches were males. I know that there's been a huge push to hire female talent on the women's soccer side of things, not just at the coaching level, but also now in the NWSL and the professional league as the GM and other roles. So I think, like you said, it's a problem throughout all of sports. I think with pickleball specifically, there has been a ton of press on how pickleball is equal opportunity. On the playing side, females are playing as much and making as much in compensation as their male counterparts, which is very true. But still on the business side, there is that lack of parity. And so this is why I'm also having, the 10 most influential women in pickleball to highlight your backgrounds, your stories, to amplify your voices so we can get more deserving people in these seats as well. I don't believe in hiring for diversity just for diversity's sake. I don't believe in that at all, but I believe that people that are qualified to have these positions should be given the opportunities, and they need to raise their hands, and they need to, like you said, they need to have mentors. So it's awesome
advocate
that you're doing
for
that.
themselves, but also have mentors that help them along the way.
Exactly.
And then we need to recognize those that deserve these emerging leaders and reward them with titles and compensation that go along with that.
Right. I agreed. Okay, so you've accomplished so much in your life professionally. Do you have any goals left professionally that you want to achieve?
That's another really good question. I feel so grateful for all the opportunities that have come my way over the past 40 years. It's like I feel like I couldn't have written a better script. If I had one more thing that I could just create or design, I would say it's exactly what we were just talking about. That it would be to play a role in elevating women's sports all the more. Because with all the popularity around women's sports, with fans and sponsors and broadcasters and social media, we still get way too small a share of the revenue pie. I mean, I think it's like less than 5%. That's crazy. So if I could do something, like I look at Billie Jean King, and she keeps, expanding her reach and her concentric circle and helping women's soccer and helping, anyone she can with equality. And it, as you were just saying, it's not just equal prize money, equal playing time, equal social media, equal broadcast time, all those things. So if I had some sort of a role in moving that needle, I think that would be hard for me to say no to.
Mm-hmm. It would be very fulfilling.
Yeah.
No one gets to where they are alone, and you've had, I'm assuming, many mentors or persons you've looked up to for guidance. Can you name a few of those?
Yeah, too many to name. I would say early on, the head of all pro tennis at IMG, Stephanie Tollison, was very important mentor to me. Then in New Haven, when I was running the Connecticut Open, I was also, the city in Yale talked me into running Market New Haven too, the destination marketing organization. And the vice president of New Haven and State Affairs, Bruce Alexander, a Duke graduate, actually, went to Duke undergrad, went to Fuqua, actually, went to Yale undergrad. But he was the chairman of Market New Haven and really taught me a lot about economic development, economic impact, the importance of an event to a city and to a state. Mm-hmm. And I learned just a tremendous amount from him. I've had countless friends who are I have a lot of friends who are CEOs and presidents who I go to all the time for advice. And my husband, he's had 35 years in sports and entertainment, and he is probably my very best advisor and my confidant. He always tells me like it is, like nobody else.
Of course, you need that. I mean, speaking of Tom, you've been married to him since 1992. You have 2 children. How has your marriage and family life in general been additive to your professional career?
You're getting very personal today, Caitlin. I'm very good at surrounding myself with loving relationships, starting with my family. My husband of 32 years, Tom, is, the love of my life and, my biggest supporter in everything I've done career-wise. He's always wanted me to do whatever I wanted to do and be the best I can be. Our 2 adult children, Tommy and Victoria, diagnosed very young with hearing loss, significant hearing loss, and have worked very hard to conquer the odds against them. They are my greatest accomplishment in life, hands down. My extended family is very special to me. And then the family we choose, right? The very, very close to your friends, including 6 Duke women who we call ourselves Duke Girls Rock, and they are my rock and they're my, everything. Mm-hmm. So I've always been very good at surrounding myself with really great people and relationships that fill my cup and bring me joy. And I'm very good at not spending time on those that do not.
Mm-hmm. That is, with so many people that want your time throughout the years, that is a very good skill to have. And you can tell that, you're always like a cup of sunshine when people see you. And that is something that I think is hard for people. Like, how do you keep such a great work-life balance through so much? There's so much else going on in life. How do you keep that?
I get asked this question a lot. Number one, what we just talked about, surrounding myself with, family and friends who bring me joy and fill my cup. I learned very young, Caitlin, not to sweat the small stuff in life. We've had a lot of loss in our family. I lost my dad to cancer, my mother to cancer, my sister-in-law to cancer, my baby brother to cancer. I've had my own cancer, and it just reminds you that this ain't no dress rehearsal. Like, cherish each day. Be grateful for this flower. Be grateful for a beautiful day. Be grateful for somebody calling you and saying, I just wanted to say hello today. I mean, so there, so many times, everyone thinks we have a crisis in pickleball, and they always ask me how I stay so calm. And it's just a matter of perspective and really just not, sweating the small stuff, keeping things in perspective. And the only other thing I would add is not taking oneself too seriously, also really helps with work-life balance. We all go through that phase where, wrongly we believe that like we're critical to everything. And that is really never true, but it puts us under a lot of pressure if you believe it. And so just not taking ourselves too seriously and being lighthearted about life, I think is also part of work-life balance. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
You didn't mention your dog.
Oh my gosh. We're on our fourth yellow lab. His name is Zach, and he brings us all unconditional love every single day. I had to put him out in the backyard for this interview because he gets bored and he comes and puts his paw on my leg during Zoom calls, and that's very clearly, okay, you need to pay more attention to me right now. But I know you're a dog person, and the unconditional love of a dog is second to no other, right?
None. Yeah, I'm obsessed. I have a golden retriever named Maverick, and
I see him all the time on social media. He's gorgeous.
Yes, he does the same thing, always wanting attention and love. But anyway, dog people are just the best. If you don't like dogs, you probably just haven't had a dog yet,
right?
to understand how amazing they are. But and you are always so put together with beautiful outfits. For all the girlies out there, what are some of your favorite brands to shop?
Well, first of all, I'm a real bargain hunter. Growing up, my mother brought 4-H from Minnesota to Long Island, and I had to make myself all my dress clothes. She would not buy me dress clothes. She'd say, I'll buy you any fabric. Yeah, Hannah Johns and I bonded over this recently. Oh. I had to make all my dress clothes. Yeah. So I love a good bargain. TJ Maxx and Target are like my favorites. And, so I shop in lots of places. If I had to say a specific brand, I love Jenny Kane. It's out of California. Do you know Jenny Kane?
I knew you would love Jenny Kane.
Really?
Their sweaters are amazing.
Just super easy to wear, a great look. So that's probably my favorite. Anina Bing has been another favorite, but I find my 27-year-old daughter stealing a lot of that out of my closet lately.
I love it. No, you always have the best outfits. Always.
Well, you have the best outfits on the court. I'm obsessed with you wear the most fun, most appropriate. Like the first time we ever had you at an MLP event was MLP Columbus, and you were wearing this orange outfit and running around the court and bringing more energy and more happiness and more joy than I had ever seen in 35 years of tennis, because our hosts in tennis are kind of serious. I'm like, who is this? And Brooks Wiley was like, she sent me an email and she wants to do this. So I decided to give her a chance. I'm like, good decision, Brooks.
Yes, that was hilarious.
And then when we're in Texas, you got the cowboy hat and you got the sparkles and the sequins, and you make it a party out there.
Thank you. No, that's been a lot of fun for me to be creative with the outfits and basically just make the joy of the sport illuminate as much as possible, whether you're in person or watching on TV or, whether it's through social media. But I feel like that was one thing that I noticed with Major League Pickleball. I was watching so much of it online in the first year. I actually saw you on on Wall Street. I remember watching
bringing
you.
the stock exchange bell with Steve Kuhn.
Yes, I remember watching that, and I said to myself, I have to meet Anne. Anne is from Duke. She's so smart. She speaks so well. That was the first time that I saw you anywhere. But no, I just felt like from watching it I think I got involved we bought a team at the end of 2022. But leading up to that, I was watching it and I thought, there are so many people that love this sport, but I felt that the viewing experience was a little dry. There was one of my friends was dating an NBA player at the time, and so I was going to NBA games, and one was at the Brooklyn Nets, and there was a woman there that's a Peloton instructor, but she's also the host, and her name's Allie Love, and she did such a great
Pelotons with Allie Love, yeah.
Yes, she did such a great job of bringing in the community that was there watching to like a different level. Like I thought, wow, her hosting in this arena is making the experience for everyone so much more joyful and better. And so I wrote that on my Instagram. Somebody asked, like, what's your goal with this? And I wrote it, and then Brooks Wiley saw it.
Oh, it was like, Instagram. That's right. Right.
So that's how that started. But yeah, that's been a joy, and I'm glad that people are having fun with it. But I know that so many people want to know where all your outfits are, so I wanted to get that.
I didn't expect that question. That's very funny.
I love it. Anything else that you want to say before we close up today?
Just thank you for shining a spotlight on women in pickleball. The other women that you've highlighted so far have been amazing. I've watched, some, not all. I can't wait to catch up and watch them all. And I can't wait to see who 9 and 10 are.
Me too. No, but thank you so much for coming on. It was a blast. So many people can learn so much from your journey as truly one of the trailblazers in sports and also in pickleball, which most people that are listening to this podcast, will understand. But last but not least, you have to say "Talk Pickle to Me" in the sexiest way possible.
Oh, shit. I was hoping you forgot that. Talk pickle to me.
Woo! All right. Thank you so much.
I want to thank Julie Johnson for having to go first. Poor Julie.
Yes, she was petrified, and she did not know it was coming. She didn't know it was coming because it was the first one. So I was
know.
like,
when I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, I hope by the time she gets to me, she'll not be doing that anymore.
You handled it well. But thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Talk Pickle to Me with Ann Worcester. Please make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Follow us on Instagram at Talk Pickle to Me. You can follow Ann on Instagram. Ann, do you know your handle? If not, we'll just put it in the comments.
I do. Okay. Worcester, WORCESTER 321.
Okay, awesome. We are going to add that to this video as well so you can see it up here, and make sure you guys come back for the next episode. New episodes drop every single Wednesday. We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Caitlin.